Documentary lighting equipment can be beautifully simple. It can also be expensive, intimidating, and genuinely overwhelming. In this video, I'm going to share how you should approach lighting equipment as an early career documentarian. I'll talk about why not owning lights is awesome, when is the right time for you to invest in gear, and what types of lights you should spend more or less money on. And then I'll wrap things up by sharing the details of the first light that I ever purchased, called the Litepanels Astra 6 bicolor LED panel, and why this rarely discussed light is one that I still use on shoots all the time. If we've never met, hi, my name is Austin Meyer. I'm a documentary filmmaker, National Geographic Explorer, and on this channel I share the field-tested skills, mindsets, and lessons that have helped me on my journey as a documentary filmmaker. For those who have been following the channel for a while, you know I am not a gearhead. Honestly, I want some solid gear that I can trust and not think too much about so that I can focus my attention on what I enjoy most, which is the crafting of the story, the interpersonal nature of documentaries. But I do talk about gear on the channel every so often because it is an important component of what we do. But let me start off this video by saying, you do not need to buy lights to make a documentary. Let me repeat that for the people watching or listening to this video while multitasking. You do not need lights. If you have a story that you want to tell and you're at this point of gear paralysis where you feel like you can't do your main interview or get started because you don't have a sweet key light, stop it. Please let me give you permission to start. If something goes wrong, blame me. But do not believe the bullshit about needing to have this gear or that gear to begin. Start. Now, if you are one of those people who doesn't own any lights, consider yourself lucky. And if you do own a bunch of lights, consider putting them aside for a shoot or two. Why? Because not using lights is awesome. My first job at a journalism school was at the LA Times, where I worked as a video journalist. I remember in my first months there, after watching a bunch of YouTube, I was convinced that I needed to own this huge light or that huge light. So I went and talked to Alan Shaban, a 30-year member of the Pulitzer Prize-winning photo staff at the LA Times, and asked him what light he would recommend that I get. To my surprise, Alan said to me, "I don't think you should buy any light right now." And I was so confused, but Alan had seen my work, he knew my eye, and he told me straight up, you need to start learning about natural light first. You need to understand sunlight, how it's affected by weather, by color, by materials, and how to use the natural elements of spaces that you're in to get the look that you want. Worry about that first. And that's what I did. I closed the B&H cart. I didn't buy a light. In fact, I worked as a full-time video journalist and documentary cinematographer for 5 years before I ever purchased a single light. And I worked on projects for National Geographic, The Atlantic, Hulu, NBC, all without a light. Now, what Alan taught me that day was that learning to work with natural light is the foundation for documentary storytelling. Build that muscle, train your eye, use your lack of control as a creative constraint. And I'm willing to bet it will benefit the story you're trying to tell. Not having lights allows you to keep your setup minimal. And that means that you can easily blend into your environment, capturing moments that feel raw and real without the intrusion of bulky lights and setups. Plus, natural light isn't just free, it's authentic. When you start introducing lights into the scene, there's a real risk of shifting the tone or making your subjects feel less comfortable. Especially when you're in intimate settings, the last thing you want to do is draw unnecessary attention to yourself. Relying on available light helps keep things organic and honestly beautiful. I mean, I will take someone just peacefully looking out a window with soft light touching their face over that boxing scene with all those tube lights that is in seemingly every cinematographer's reel. To me, natural life is cinematic. So if you want cinematic footage, learn how to make what is natural beautiful. But hey, maybe you've been doing your thing with natural light for a little bit. Maybe you're starting to get some jobs filming interviews that require more elaborate setups, and you're ready to start investing in lights. And I hear you, I have also been there. For me, I bought my first light, which I'm gonna show you in a minute, when I started getting hired on jobs that I just couldn't do without a light. If we think about understanding natural light as the foundation, I'd say that starting to bring in external lights is for when you're ready to expand your visual palette from either a creative or business perspective. Maybe you want to experiment with colors. Maybe you need to film an interview of someone in front of a big window to illustrate the setting they live in, or in a room that would otherwise be much too dark. Or maybe you have a client interested in hiring you who either expects a big light or has a project that necessitates it. At that point, go for it. But remember, don't go overboard. One good light can go a long way in transforming your setup without breaking the bank or adding too much complexity to your gear. For me, the investment in a single versatile light made a world of difference without requiring me to carry a bunch of additional equipment. And again, if you've really learned how to use natural light, you'll be able to make one external light go a lot further in your productions than other folks will. When you start to invest in lights, the key here is not to rush. Don't feel pressured to buy gear just because you see other filmmakers using it. Wait until you're truly feeling limited by your current setup, and then make a targeted investment. So what types of lights should you invest in? And what should you avoid? When you do decide to purchase lights, start with something versatile and durable. One of the best investments you can make is in an adjustable LED panel that can function as a key light and a softbox to go along with it. Now let's break that down. LED panels are compact and lightweight, which means they are really easy to travel with. They are also often bicolor, meaning that they can switch between daylight and tungsten. And this flexibility allows you to match existing lighting in a room or use the lights outdoors without making the scene look overly artificial. And let me break down key light and softbox. A key light is the primary artificial light source in a scene. And in documentaries, this will often come in handy when filming interviews. So that's what you're looking for, a light that you can essentially shine in someone's face. This is my key light right here. And the way to make that light more flattering is to get a softbox. A softbox will help diffuse the light, making it land on your participant's face in a soft and flattering way. To study this effect before you buy external lights, just observe midday sunlight hitting people's faces when there are no clouds in the sky and when there are clouds in the sky. Notice how when there are no clouds in the sky, the light will be very harsh. The shadows will be dark and sharp. And when it's cloudy, the shadows will be softer, less intense. So that's essentially what you'll be investing in with a softbox. You'll be investing in a cloud to put over your key light. Now, what lights should you avoid? Well, some of the opposite characteristics when you're just getting started. Don't go with big and heavy lights. I also wouldn't worry about getting lights that have full RGB color spectrum. So full RGB color spectrum are like those lights behind me over here that I can make any color. I would just focus on either daylight balance or bicolor light that goes from warm tungsten to white daylight balance. That'll cover you for most situations. And then I'd also hold off on worrying about things like tube lights and accent lights. And I say that because you're gonna see them all the time here on YouTube in people's setups, people trying to get commissions from them. Again, they are not essential. They're nice, they're just not essential. So start looking at those when you're ready to expand your visual palette, or when you've had a situation where you are frustrated by not having accent lights and then now understand exactly what situation they would be useful to deploy in. And with all that, I want to show you the first light that I ever purchased. And to be clear, this is unsponsored. I bought this light over 3 years ago with my own money. Litepanels has no idea I'm making this video and probably no idea that I even exist. But I did want to share it with you because I do stand by this purchase, and I believe that this is a great first light for documentary filmmakers. I will also say that this is not me telling you to buy this light. There are tons of amazing lights out there to choose from whenever you are ready to try something. Tons of lights that I haven't tried, so I can't speak to them. But after 3+ years of experience with this light, I thought maybe it would be helpful to share a little perspective, tiny bit. So the light is called the Astra 6x Color LED light. I've seen the price fluctuate on this thing, so I have no idea what it will be when you are watching this video. Right now on B&H, it is on sale from $1,200 to $500, which is wild. I think I bought it for $1,000. I also see one on B&H that is used for $408, which is always a great route to go. buying used. And then I also have the DOP Choice Snapbag Softbox for Astra 1x1, which I bought for $275 and is currently on sale for $200. I will put links in the description to all the items I'm talking about in case you are curious to learn more and check out all the specs. The Astra 6x is actually not a light that I see really ever talked about on YouTube. Who knows why that is? Probably has to do with their marketing priorities or budget, but it is quite popular in the world of television news and journalism. And the first time that I heard about it being used on legit documentary productions was from cinematographer Mike Abella, who was using it on a feature-length documentary that we worked on together for Hulu called Dear Santa. And it turns out a lot of high-level cinematographers are out there using this panel. Cinematographer Matt Porwall, who shot Cartel Land and The Trade, which are both incredibly beautiful documentaries that have inspired me, he described lighting those projects like this. The approach to lighting was entirely natural. We never wanted to augment the space with lights. But for interviews, each team carried a Litepanels Astra bicolor. Both those projects are shot in incredibly challenging and intimate settings. Their teams were moving around a lot, and that is where this light really shines, pun intended. It is durable, it is portable. I've thrown it into the bottom of suitcases, on the ground, into the trunk of cars. And to get it up and running is also very simple. There aren't a bunch of cords or a big power station or ballast. You can either plug it into the wall directly, or if you order an additional V-mount plate attachment, you can run the light off V-mounted battery power. Then on the back of the light, right here, it's all very simple as well. There's one dial that controls the color temperature, which goes from 3200 to 5600 Kelvin. And then there's another dial that controls the intensity. So it's not gonna give you a lot of bells and whistles and customization options. It's not going to give you, the power you need if you wanna frame an interview right in front of a huge midday window, but it will give you simple and versatile reliability. Here are some behind the scenes moments with the Astra light panel and the eventual shots that went into projects that I've worked on for Hulu and the New York Stock Exchange. All right, so let's start looking at some of these example images. This is from a shoot that I did in Aspen, Colorado with the New York Stock Exchange. And here was the setup that we had. So as you can see here is our Astra light panel set up as our key light, shining right there. And then we have a camera, Sony FX6, kind of dead center, which we have him look into. And then there's a B camera over here getting a more profile view. Also, we have a little hair light, which is one of those tube lights I talked about. That's kind of giving him a little hair light on this side. And this interview, we were able to do this in front of this big window because we had a lot of tree coverage outside of the window. So it was rather dark. If we didn't have much tree coverage back here and the background was even lighter on a very bright sunny day, we wouldn't have enough power in this Astra key light here. But as you'll see from the examples, it looks really nice. We have a properly exposed window in the back, and then we have nice soft light on the interview subject. And so I think this example worked out really nicely. Okay, now let's take a look at a documentary example. So this one, we got our key light right here outside. And the reason that I wanted to bring this in, even though we were outdoor, is that there was a bit of rain coming down outside here. And so we wanted to get the camera and all the light and the microphone underneath this big awning here. So we moved everyone into this little area and brought our talent in this way as well, which meant that this darkness over here was kind of casting some darkness and shadow on his face, which made him too dark compared to this very bright, snowy backdrop back here. And so what I did is I brought in this light panel to just give a little extra pop to separate him from this kind of dark space that we're filming in and make him pop out from the background a little bit more. So let's see how that looked.
The town of Big Creek's a great small town. According to the sign, the population is about 170 people. Big Creek School's been around for over 100 years. Currently, there are 34 students and 4 preschool students who go to the school. Before the fires hit here, we were running about 60 students.
Okay, so as you can see, having that little light panel just kind of gives us a little separation here, brightens up his face, because if we didn't have it, you'd see kind of this shadow side of his face that would wrap all the way around and just make him a little bit too dark for this very bright background we have here. Okay, now let's go on to an interview that happened right after this one in the series. In this example, we are now indoor talking to another person in this same town. We got our Litepanels Astra indoor, and then I set up 2 cameras, the Sony FX6 and the A7S III on a 70-200. So we got our talent speaking to the field producer right here. And so we're just off center, and then we have this profile view here. And let's look how the Litepanels Astra did on this one.
I get a text from my neighbor just before 1 a.m. She says, "Nettie, have you looked up toward the point?" And the whole sky is lit up orange. I grab a couple of our Bibles. My husband in the meantime.
So I think this one turned out pretty nicely. Maybe if I was going to do it again and I had more time and I wasn't a solo shooter, I would bring in some negative fill on this side to just get a little bit more contrast, get a bit more shadow on this side of her face. But I think it's a lovely, frame that's very clear, very simple. And that was the look for the show. All right, and the last example, again, is from that Dear Santa series. This was an interview that took place in a ballet studio. Again, very simple setup. We just have our Litepanels Astra. We don't have any hair light or anything. It's just a basic key light setup. And then we kind of decorated the background with some of these string lights that we brought to every shoot because it's a Christmas series. So nice to have those Christmas ambient lights. Shot again on the A7S III with 70-200 and FX6. And let's see how this one looked.
The first thing she did is she came up to me and put her arms around me. Sorry. And hugged me and said, "You remind me of my father."
So I think this one turned out really nicely as well. Again, just one light, and this is what you can do. And again, I like how this one you can see compared to that last one I just showed, you do get a bit more contrast on this side of his face, which just is based on the angle that I was putting this light panel, just giving it a little bit more of a side angle so I'd get a little bit more drama just based on this type of story that this storyline was. So there you go. Just one light and you get all these different things that you can do with it. Again, I'm sure there are a ton of great lights out there that could also fit the bill, that aren't crazy expensive, but are easy to travel with, set up, and use for the documentary filmmaker out there working in unpredictable environments. I'm just sharing this one because it's what I know and what I've used for years. But drop a comment if you have additional recommendations. What have you been using? What was your first light? Share it with us. And with that, it's time for me to turn off these lights and go grab some dinner. I will see you next week. Go out and tell some stories.